I've heard the term go woke, go broke over and over again over the last few years when it pertains to a film's failure at the box office. And as I understand it, the idea is that a film goes so woke that no one wants to see it, therefore, the movie bombs at the box office. The fact that some people blame a movie's failure at the box office on wokeness is both absurd and, dare I say, delusional. So allow me to be the Morpheus to your Neo and help wake you up from this culture war nonsense. I'll actually explain to you without any sort of agenda to look at things objectively why movies actually bomb at the box office. And spoiler alert, it has nothing to do with wokeness. Now, there are a few different reasons why films fail at the box office, so let's start with arguably the biggest reason. The movie just wasn't that good. When a general audience goes to the movies and doesn't have a good time, they're not going to go home and tell their friends and family about it. They'll just walk out of the theater expressing how bad it was and move on with their lives. And when there's no word of mouth, when there's no excitement, when there's no buzz, a movie will most certainly die in arrival. And to piggyback off this point, another reason has to do with interest. When people aren't interested in the movie in the first place and the movie is bad, people aren't going to flock to the cinema. And people's disinterest in a movie can be pinpointed by a few different things. Maybe the trailer sucked. Maybe this is the 30th movie in a franchise starring C-list characters that no one knows or cares about. I can't tell you how important it is for a movie to be great and interesting to a general audience to gain box office success. And it has no bearing on whether or not the film is woke. Now, obviously, there are many people out there who are sick of Hollywood wokeness and they boycott and get angry. Of course, those people exist. But you're delusional if you think there are so many of them that it actually affects the box office. It doesn't, and there aren't. A movie fails because there wasn't any interest in the first place and the movie sucked. It has more to do with lazy storytelling than it does with the fact that there's I don't know, a trans character in the movie. It has next to nothing to do with how woke a film is. Plain and simple. Other reasons why movies fail are advertising and ticket prices. Not every studio has the budget to advertise their film on a massive scale. How many times has the Academy Awards come around and a lot of people say, "What are these movies? I've never even heard of these." This happens every year. When a film isn't advertised to the high heavens, a general audience doesn't know of its existence, leading to low box office numbers. And it gets even worse if the movie is bad. Another element is, maybe the trailer sucked. It could be a big budget Hollywood film that's advertised like crazy, but if the trailer isn't enticing, people aren't going to show up. I mean, shit, how many times have we watched a trailer and the trailer gives everything away and we say, well, I guess I don't have to see that movie because I just saw the whole damn movie in the trailer. Then there's ticket prices. Ticket prices are high right now, and if you have a family, you're probably going to be forking over at least 60 to $80 just to go to the movies. And because ticket prices are high, audiences are more selective with what they want to see. Does your average audience member want to go spend money on the Little Mermaid remake or the 30th Marvel movie with C-list characters they've never heard of? Or would they rather save their money to see something like Oppenheimer, Barbie, or Dune Part 2? The answer seems obvious to me. Listen, you can scream go woke, go broke till the cows come home, but the honest truth is that a film's failure has nothing to do with wokeness. If there was a list of reasons why movies fail, wokeness would be at the very bottom of that list. Wokeness in film is irrelevant to the box office. It's just a footnote. And as an aside, I also love how selective people are when it comes to go woke, go broke. They'll point to movies like The Marvels, but completely ignore Barbie and the Little Mermaid remake. They don't want to admit that those movies made a shit ton of money and they were deemed woke. So apparently, if you go woke, you don't go broke? I mean, at this point, I'm very confused. Which is it? Because you can't have it both ways. I want to talk about Hollywood wokeness for a minute because over the years, I've been watching many YouTubers and TV commentators sound the alarm that Hollywood wokeness is out of control and it's become too woke. As someone who loves movies and goes out to the theater at least 40 to 50 times in a year, this alarmism has kind of left me scratching my head because most of the movies that I saw last year alone weren't woke. So I did a little digging and looked at the films of 2023 and specifically what were the movies people deemed so woke that it bothered them. And I found three movies that people were the most upset about. Those movies were The Little Mermaid, Barbie, and The Marvels. That's it. Three movies. Now, let me ask you a question. Do you know how many movies are released theatrically in a calendar year in North America? Well, it's roughly around 250 to 300 movies, and they range from small indie releases to big budget releases. As a refresher, here are some of the films that came out last year that I watched that weren't woke: Megan, Knock at the Cabin, Cocaine Bear, Creed 3, Scream 6, 65, Mario Brothers, Beau Was Afraid, Mission Impossible, John Wick 4, Air, Talk to Me, Evil Dead Rise, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, Across the Spider-Verse, Past Lives, Transformers, The Flash, Asteroid City, Gran Turismo, Equalizer 3, The Nun 2, Dumb Money, The Creator, Exorcist Believer, Killers of the Flower Moon, The Killer, Dream Scenario, Saltburn, Eileen, Poor Things, Wonka, The Zone of Interest, The Iron Claw, The Boys in the Boat, and Ferrari. Now, what was that, like 40 movies? I'm sure I'm leaving more out here, but the point is, people were mad about three movies. Three. I mean, gee golly, hide your kids, hide your wife. The woke brigade is kicking your door down with three woke movies. The amount of non-woke movies released each year outweigh those that are woke by a massive margin. 90 to 95% of movies that release in a year aren't woke. What I see happening is that a very, very, very small group of movies are deemed woke. And then when a movie is deemed woke, the internet jumps on it like flies to a piece of shit and then starts spouting how woke Hollywood is and how out of control it's become. It's really, really stupid and doesn't reflect the reality that the majority of Hollywood movies aren't woke. The last point I want to make before I leave is this idea that Hollywood has become woke, as if wokeness in Hollywood is a new thing that's developed in the last 10 years or so. And to those people, I have to say, I hate to break it to you, but Hollywood has always been woke. The reason why it feels new now is because it comes in waves. Our arts, whether it's music, movies, novels, or TV, is always going to be a reflection of our reality. And the reality right now is that we live in a very politically and socially active nation. And not only that, but America is going through drastic changes and we're witnessing it every day. So, of course, our art is going to reflect this because who makes art? That's right. People. People with thoughts, ideas, beliefs, and agendas. They want to use their platform of choice to express how they feel. And for those of you who don't believe me, just look at films from the 60s and 70s. Sure, we look at these films now and say, what's the big deal? They aren't woke. But the problem is, we're looking at these films through the lens of 2024. Put yourself in the shoes of someone who was actually living through that time period. People walked out of films like Easy Rider and said, what is this hippie propaganda? Drugs, rock and roll, sex. This isn't cinema. What happened to the good old days with films like Singing in the Rain, The Sound of Music, My Fair Lady? Those were movies. This is hippie trash. Now, does that sound familiar? Look at something like In the Heat of the Night. There was a massive controversy surrounding that movie because at one point in the movie, Sidney Poitier, a black man, slaps a white racist cop. And that's it. People were so upset about that quick scene that it became a huge deal. And it sounds ridiculous, right? But again, doesn't this all sound familiar? There are dozens of examples from movies in that era, and guess what? The 60s and 70s were also a time where our nation was politically and socially active and going through massive changes. So stop with this notion that Hollywood has never been woke because that's not true, and also stop with this idea that it's getting out of control because that's also not true, given that the vast majority of movies released each year aren't woke. I think overall, if we can just start looking at these things objectively and with a little bit of common sense, instead of giving into this culture war nonsense, we'd be far better off. The sooner we can all realize that the success or failure of any film has nothing to do with wokeness, the sooner we can all come back to planet Earth as a whole. We no longer need to feed into the hands of go woke, go broke, because it isn't real. It's a manufactured slogan meant to monetize off of making you hate Hollywood filmmaking. And listen, you can hate Hollywood, but hate it for the right reasons. Hate it for bad, lazy storytelling. Hate it for cash grab sequels. Hate it for overpriced tickets. Hate it for running franchises into the ground. I'd say let's unplug ourselves from this anti woke culture war fuckery and stop trying to blame every problem in Hollywood on the big bad woke boogeyman.